Let's go.
Peace and good afternoon, great morning. Hope everyone is feeling bright, beautiful, and if you're not, you will be. I want to thank God for this moment of being here. I know I'm told, like at corporate events, to not talk about God, but I'm a believer in God, and I believe in God that exists in all mankind. So I just want to acknowledge God's presence and the gifts that He has given all of us. The gift of life, the gift of this day, the gift of the work that you all are doing. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for showing up. Thank you. Thank you to, thank you to Hopelink for what you've been in so many people's lives. I was watching, or got to hear some of the clips, and it's really impressive and inspiring to see what you all are doing. And inspiration comes from so many places in our lives. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, her name was Mrs. Lynn, she taught me a story about this young man named Emmett Till. And Emmett Till was from Chicago, like I am. And this story, which is a true story, took place in the 50s when Emmett Till was 14 years old, and he went to visit his family down in Mississippi just for a summer vacation. As I was reading, I couldn't help but to relate to Emmett Till because he was from Chicago like me. I was 12 years old when I was reading the story. And I also went to visit my family for my summer vacations, and some of my family was from Mississippi. Well, as I continued to read this story about Emmett Till, it didn't turn out the way I thought it would or would have liked for it to turn out. Emmett Till was at a corner store with his cousins, and the story is he whistled at a white woman, and that whistle turned his life around. That woman went home and told her family that this young black boy had whistled at her. And her family came and sought him out, found out where he was, took this young 14-year-old boy, beat him to death, and threw him in a river. Now, as a 12-year-old, this is a story that was shaking me, it shook me. And what shook me even more was Mrs. Lynn, our teacher, decided to show us the photos which Emmett Till's mother made sure he had an open casket so the world could see what hatred could do. Well, at 12 years old, I felt like my life, when I looked at that picture of Emmett Till and realized that because of him just being a young black boy, and whatever he did at that moment ended up taking his life, I felt that my life had to be worth something. I felt like I owed it to Emmett Till and those who had came before me. I felt like my life needed to honor his by being something in life that can mean something to other people. So I took that inspiration and started moving forward. It wasn't the type of inspiration you think of like, yes, the world is joyful, but it was an inspiration that came from pain, that came from struggle, that came from connection, that came from duty, that I had to do something in this world. I would grow and evolve and come to find out that there was somebody else that would inspire me. And this person did live his life and was full and bright, and he changed the world by who he was and his spirit. His name was Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, if you all are familiar, who was the greatest heavyweight champion of all time at that time, for sure. And he was a civil rights activist and a philanthropist. And it's the person that everybody knew as the GOAT before there was Serena. Now we got to acknowledge Serena as the GOAT. And the thing is, I never saw any of Muhammad Ali's matches. But the way he spoke about himself is what inspired me. As a young black kid in Chicago, I was watching him speak things into existence. He would say, I am the greatest. I'm going to knock this guy out in the 5th round. And he did it. He did it. And I learned the power of words and the power of thought. And it was served to me as an inspiration of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be great. And I knew I could be. And I didn't know what I was going to do and be great at, but I knew I had a desire to be great. It was the lives of Emmett Till and Muhammad Ali that helped serve me to know that I had to be great. Not long after that, I found hip hop. Well, it kind of found me. And it was an art form and expression that really helped define me and helped me to understand what my worth was and is. It acted as a gateway, a path to a place for me to value myself and know my destiny and start fulfilling myself and finding my purpose in many ways. Hip hop had provided a voice for me that allowed me to express things that I never would naturally express just in my conversations because of the way I had been raised. I was told to be humble. I was told to not be cocky, which also meant not be confident in certain ways. But hip hop gave me that avenue, and it reminded me of what Muhammad Ali had been doing for my life. And that helped me to notice something that I was passionate about, and it was a great expression for me. And then that passion evolved into something that was purposeful. I realized it to be a purpose. It came from my passion to a purpose. And it happened when I was at a concert, and after I finished the show, this gentleman came up to me. He was in his 20s, a young black man, and he said to me, "Hey, Common, your song, Retrospect for Life, is the reason I decided to have my child." That really moved me and touched me and shook me in good ways. He said, because the song was based on abortion and it was talking about the experience, and he said, after hearing that song, me and my partner decided to have our child. I realized at that time how words can help illuminate and how powerful the microphone is. And how powerful it was in speaking my truth, because in that song, I was just telling my truth. And then I learned the power of seeking a higher truth. And that higher truth really started leading me to becoming an activist. Because the higher truth was like, not just listening to what everybody is saying, what the status quo is saying, what we should be, not just listening to what the news is reporting to me, not just listening to well, we didn't have Instagram and all that at the time, but what the chatter was, but just really seeking a higher truth, a truth that would exist beyond just the moment, a truth that would always be here, seeking a higher truth that exists in all of us. And how would I seek that higher truth? Well, I already had my spirituality, which was very important to me. My belief in God, my relationship with God. But that developed, it grew, because I was raised going to church. My mother made sure I went to church. No matter if I went out and partied the Saturday night, that morning, Sunday morning, I was going to church, hungover and everything. And this is in my when I'm 19, I'm a young man. She's still like, yo, you going? But it became a great habit and a practice for me to know that my spiritual self needed to be tended to. And I also developed that by learning more things. I went to seek out for myself around that age starting to learn new things about my own spirituality, started to get into a mindful practice and learn what mindfulness could be for my life. And that practice helped me to grow into more of a self-love and a belief. You know, belief in yourself can change many things. You can shift the world with believing in yourself. And the beauty is, anything you do for yourself, because I had a lot of practices and I still practice them, from mindfulness to working out, that's important to me. Just to tend to myself and love myself, to eating a better diet. Those things, like, I had to put into practice. I had to develop and learn what that was and understand it, but it became a way for me to take care of myself and love myself. And it's something because we all in here because we want to do better and do better for the world. But it actually does start with you. It's like the more we're kinder to ourselves, the better we are to others. And there is no activism without self-activism. Ambassador Andrew Young, who was very close and was part of the civil rights movement, but worked very close with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said to us at a rehearsal for the movie Selma, he said, "What are you willing to die for? Live for that." What are you willing to die for? Live for that. He said, we were willing to die for freedom, justice, and equality. So we live for it each and every day. I went home thinking, what am I committing my life to, and what am I willing to die for? And am I really living up to the service that I claim? Because at the time, I was being called an activist. I was being called a person that's a man of the people. But was I dedicating myself to that each and every day? I know at Hopelink, you all are here to serve. And it has evolved in service. And I want to acknowledge the work that you already have been doing and how you're continuing to evolve and grow. But I do believe that service and evolving requires us to dig deep. It's like you reach that one moment and you're like, we've done some good things, but it has to go deeper. And the deeper you go, the lower you have to reach. Because it's like the more opportunities and the more exposure you get, that means you're actually creating an opportunity for others. And if you reach low, you're creating an even bigger journey and path for people to get to that level, meaning you are actually gaining more ground by the lower we reach. And I learned that because I've been to many different places, been to prisons, doing work with people who are incarcerated, people who I normally would be like, I don't necessarily know if I want to be around these people. But the more I was around them, the more I dug deeper into these places, cracks and crevices where people say don't go, the people that are condemned and people who are overlooked and people who are deemed as just murderers and thieves, I started to learn more about myself and learn more about human qualities. And I met some of the most enlightened and beautiful people in those places. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, I want us to think about not just having one black person at the table, one Latino person at the table, one Asian person at the table, one woman at the table, and say, we diverse, look at us, we doing it. But think about diversity within cultures and people. Think about having people with different mindsets. Think about having the people that we may have normally judged walking down the street at that table. Some of the greatest wisdom I got in my life came from my uncle, who was a beautiful man, but also was an addict. He died of AIDS because he was addicted to drugs. One of my favorite wisdom givers around my neighborhood was a guy named Duck, who was a drunk. but he also was a good human being and a good man. And he would share wisdom with me each and every time he saw me. And times where I was dealing with a lot, Duck would say the right words to me. And it allowed me to know the truth, and God can speak through any and everybody. So I'm saying to Hopelink and all of us here, like, this is our time to reach and dig deeper. As a community, as an organization, when we talk about neighborhood, the neighborhood is important, but one thing I know about my neighborhood, when you first come to a neighborhood, when we first moved in our neighborhoods, we have a little block club party for you. You get a little love, but we also would come and get to know you and get connected with you. People would bring you food. People would cook for you. You had uncles and aunts that would make sure that you were doing the right things, speaking their piece. You get to enjoy some of the times and come party with the neighborhood, but the food that we brought, because you know in the neighborhood, people bring food. We would bring good food. Not that I was the cook, but they would bring good food. But the food that you all are bringing now, as we talk about the neighborhood, is opportunity, it's services, it's information and connections. It's taking that time to stop when somebody says something to you that you know they may not know anything about the business that you're in, and just giving them a word of wisdom or giving them the time of day. It's making sure that the programs and the places that we're going to are in some of the most dire and difficult situations in communities. That is feeding the people the right way and digging deeper and going to places that we haven't been. What really definitely changed my way of thinking with that was coming in contact with people who I normally hadn't been around. And as the great Brian Stevenson says, it's important to be in proximity. When you're in proximity, you ensure yourself that all voices are heard. And we always say, let our voices be heard, all voices. It's really hard to articulate or to really know what a voice sounds like unless you get into the presence of it. So I'm encouraging us to be in the presence of all. And many times, it's just a simple sparkle in the heart to know, like, okay, this person is different from me, but I'm gonna take some time. It happened to me when I was in Ohio. I was at this Dave Chappelle event. He has like great events, by the way. He just has great, but we were about to go canoeing. We were in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and we decided to go canoeing, which was something that I don't normally do. I'm from the south side of Chicago, but I was looking forward to it because I like nature. Well, on the ride, this gentleman who picked us up to take us was somebody who I would consider, me and him didn't have much in common. But as we rode for 40 minutes to get to the river, we talked about different things in life. And come to find out, after he didn't even know who Common was, to be honest, and he just was like, okay, this guy's, cool. And first we were silent for the first 10 minutes, and then the conversation started to evolve. And I got to know him better. And this same person that I normally, probably in any other shape, form, or fashion would think is against me, we started to connect, bond, and understand each other. And even if we didn't agree in every point, we still had something that we could agree and bond on. Later, he found out that his daughter was a fan because his daughter's friend had just passed it, and his daughter's friend had told them to listen to my music because he had been listening to it before he left the earth. And that touched that gentleman, and it touched me. And we had a point of bonding where I was like, no matter what your vote is, no matter where you come from, even what your prejudice has been, or my prejudice has been, we found something that we connected on, and we were able to move forward and just appreciate each other and enjoy each other in that moment, in that day. And it taught me a lesson to make sure that I'm not just judging, because I can judge also. From my experiences, I can also just put a judgment on the others. It also taught me that I have to dig deep to connect with others and not just be in my own perspective and world. Well, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it takes a lot. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of digging deep. Your family sometimes doesn't get a chance to see you as much, but it's important work. Service is important work. Us pushing each other to be better is important work. And as the great Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Hopelink, Seattle, and to all of us in this room, our rent is due. Thank you.